Aquaman, the highly anticipated DC movie with Jason Momoa, Amber Heard, directed by James Wan. So how is it? In a nutshell, flawed, but fun. We finally get the full backstory of how Arthur Curry becomes Aquaman. And we get to learn about just how he grew up, how he was even became, how his parents meet, and which, if you've seen the trailer, then you already understand that. But the whole point is that we get to see him progress from a little kid to an adult who then goes around and saves people, and then does he... Well, of course he becomes Aquaman. That's the whole point of the movie and the title, so that's not even a spoiler. But he has this choice to make, and this little bit of tension, this, you know, the unwilling hero type of thing, where he's like, well, I don't want to be this, I'm not this guy. But then, well, of course he does. The movie is really a lot of action, and that is the good part of it. That when the action's going on, you're having a ton of fun. That it is just, you know, there's all kinds of just this visual onslaught of different things just happening. And that is a lot of just great things to see. Now, it's totally CGI heavy. So, you know, if you think that it's going to be a lot of practical effects, you just need to change your thinking right there and go in with, okay, I'm going to see a lot of CGI. Now, most of it is really good. The de-aging process at the beginning of the film almost looked like it was totally computer animated. That it bothered me a little bit, that it was too CGI and just too affected, and so it had this whole sheen to it that didn't look real. Jason Momoa is the same character basically every person he plays, but as Arthur Curry, he's awesome. I think he is Aquaman, and that's great because that's why we're seeing this movie, right? That he is, I mean, he just plays it really well. He's this nonchalant kind of guy who just says whatever he wants to say. He's intelligent, but not too bright at some points, or at least not observant, or just doesn't care. Maybe that's what it is. He's just kind of apathetic to certain things, but then not others. Amber Heard is Mara from Atlantis, and she is, you know what, she's actually pretty enjoyable to watch on screen. That she has this really cool power of how she can control water and control liquids, and I didn't know about her short of seeing this movie, and so that was fun to watch her in. You know, she does a good job. The chemistry between her and Jason Momoa works pretty well, that they get along. Their timing is pretty good, and so they make a believable friendship, or, you know, sparring each other in words, and I enjoyed that. Really, for the most part, we get good performances out of everybody. So we have Willem Dafoe, who is kind of the vizier to the king, played by Patrick Wilson, King of Atlantis, that is, King Orm. And then we have Nicole Kidman, who does really good job as Jason Momoa's Arthur Curry's mother. Dolph Lundgren's in it, and he does a pretty good job as well. I mean, he's kind of understated, and he's not over the top, and so he's believable. He's just there. Yahya Abdul-Mateen plays Black Manta, and he's really good, except he has such a small part in this movie that I thought from the trailers that Black Manta was actually going to be a larger part, a larger villain in this. And it turns out that he's not. He's just kind of this little side character. Cool to see, cool technology, but in the end, I kind of think he's almost a little unnecessary because of all of the other story arcs that are going on in the film. I think that's one thing that the story suffers, is that it's ambitious, that it's doing a whole lot. It's trying to tell a whole lot of different things all at once. And, you know, sometimes the best story is a simple story that then you develop really well. This one it's not really a simple story. I mean, if you follow the one line, it is simple, but then there's all these other things that they have to do. Along the way, Aquaman reminded me of a whole lot of other films. In one scene, there is totally How to Train Your Dragon 2. There is another that is Jurassic Park: The Lost World. That it's little, but it's there. There's Journey to the Center of the Earth. And then we also have, there is a scene, and it almost doesn't fit with the filmmaking style that James Wan had set up. Is it because it really made me think of The Little Mermaid and Tangled. Now, partially The Little Mermaid just because, well, no, there's actually several things. First off, Amber Heard has this bright red hair like Ariel does. And then she's, pardon the pun, but a fish out of water. That she's walking around on land interacting with humans, and she doesn't totally know how to act. And then you have just this wonderment as they're going through this public market, and it really reminded me of Tangled. But then to top it off, and the thing that stood out that made it not feel like the rest of the film, is that the soundtrack ramps up and you have an actual vocal soundtrack of a song playing over this slow moving, just as she's experiencing the people and the wonderment around her. And it's like, dude, this is not the same movie. What's going on? I gotta say, in this, Dr. Evil would be so proud of Aquaman, because finally he gets some frickin' sharks with some frickin' lasers on their heads. Aquaman clocks in at 2 hours and 23 minutes, and I gotta say that I began to feel it. That there is, you know, there's so much going on in the story and so many different places that they have to do that it really, I think some of it could have been cut out, sped up, something, so that then we condense it a little bit, because as much as I like an engaging long film, not every part of this was engaging, and so I did begin to get, not bored, but just like, let's get to more action, please. As far as the DCEU is concerned, Aquaman is a strong entry into it, because for the most part, I mean, let's just face it, the majority of the films have not been well made. That they start off great, but they lack in story or just rushing through or no character development, whatever it is. In Aquaman, we get some good character development. We get some great action. The story still needs a little bit of work, but overall you see where they're going, and it was fun to watch. Now, I don't think the story is as good as Wonder Woman, but as far as action and just the overall visuals of it, I think it's right on par with that. And one thing that I really liked, this was a brighter movie. That, you know, the DC movies for the most part tend to be dark. And not in tone, well, sometimes in tone, but in color also. That a lot of it happens in the dark, and I don't know if that's to save on CGI or whatever it is, but this, a lot of it is happening in the light. And so it was nice to see that. And you get to see some of even the underwater where it is just brilliant white. And I think that led to some more of the, you know, the fun feeling of this. And we get to see a ton of different creatures, and it is just awesome to watch. Overall, you know, the whole movie is a lot of fun, even though it is flawed in some points. There is a mid-credit scene, so don't leave before you watch that. Otherwise, you know, you'll just miss out on a nice little piece there. There's no sex or nudity. There is some profanity and a fair amount of violence. I give Aquaman 3.5 out of 5 couches. So here's the question: DC or Marvel? Let the battle commence in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.